For decades, the rest of the world laughed at us. Americans just don't get soccer, they said. We had gridiron football, baseball, and basketball. Soccer was just that thing you played in third grade so you could eat orange slices at halftime. But look around right now in 2026. The World Cup is literally in our backyard. Stadiums from LA to New York are sold out. Millions of Americans are waking up at 6 a.m. to watch Premier League games. So, what changed? How did the boring sport we ignored for a century suddenly hijack the American sports landscape? Let's rewind. To understand the rise, you have to understand the fall. In the early 1900s, soccer actually had a shot in the US. But then came the Great Depression, infighting among soccer leagues, and the rise of our big three: baseball, basketball, and American football. These sports were heavily commercialized and built specifically for American television. American football gave you commercial breaks every 3 minutes. Soccer? 45 minutes of nonstop action with zero ad breaks. Broadcasters hated it. So for the next 60 years, soccer was effectively locked out of American living rooms. To understand the rise, you have to understand the fall. In the early 1900s, soccer actually had a shot in the US. But then came the Great Depression, infighting among soccer leagues, and the rise of our big three: baseball, basketball, and American football. These sports were heavily commercialized and built specifically for American television. American football gave you commercial breaks every 3 minutes. Soccer, 45 minutes of nonstop action with zero ad breaks. Broadcasters hated it. So, for the next 60 years, soccer was effectively locked out of American living rooms. To host that '94 World Cup, the US had to promise FIFA we would create a top-tier professional league. In 1996, Major League Soccer was born, and honestly, it was rough. Teams played in massive, empty NFL stadiums. To Americanize the game, they tried weird rules like a countdown clock and hockey-style shootouts. Purists hated it, and casuals still didn't care. MLS almost went bankrupt in 2001, but they survived by doing something incredibly smart. They focused on the grassroots. While the Pro League struggled, a silent revolution was happening in the suburbs. In the 80s and 90s, parents realized soccer was cheaper and statistically safer than American football. Enter the era of the soccer mom. Millions of kids were playing the sport. They weren't watching it on TV yet, but a massive generational foundation was being poured. By the time these kids grew up, they understood the offside rule. They appreciated the skill, and they were primed to become consumers. They just needed something better to watch. Never underestimate the power of a video game. In the 2000s and 2010s, EA Sports' FIFA franchise became a cultural phenomenon in the US. It was a digital Trojan horse. Kids who had never watched a real soccer match were suddenly memorizing the rosters of Chelsea, Real Madrid, and Bayern Munich. The game's fast-paced Ultimate Team modes delivered constant dopamine hits. It gamified the global sport, teaching Americans the rules, the tactics, and the superstar names without them even realizing they were learning. With a new generation hooked on the video game, TV networks finally caught on. In 2013, NBC bought the rights to the English Premier League and made it incredibly accessible. Suddenly, Saturday and Sunday mornings had a new ritual. Instead of watching cartoons or pre-game talk shows, Americans were waking up, pouring coffee, and watching high-quality, authentic European soccer. It was commercial-free, fast-paced, and over before noon, leaving the rest of the day open. It fit the American weekend perfectly. While the men's team struggled to find consistency, the U.S. women's national team became absolute titans, winning 4 World Cups and multiple Olympic golds. They provided the one thing Americans demand above all else: absolute dominance. Players like Mia Hamm, Megan Rapinoe, and Alex Morgan became household names. They proved that soccer could be an American game, and they built a massive, fiercely loyal fan base that drove merchandise sales and TV ratings through the roof. Back in the MLS, things were slowly improving, but they needed a spark. In 2007, they got a supernova. David Beckham signed with the LA Galaxy. It changed everything. Suddenly, Hollywood A-listers were at soccer games. Beckham's arrival legitimized the league globally and proved that massive stars could play in America. It also introduced the designated player rule, opening the floodgates for international talent like Thierry Henry and Zlatan Ibrahimovic to eventually cross the Atlantic. You also can't ignore the math. The demographics of the United States were rapidly shifting. A growing Hispanic population brought a deep, ingrained passion for the sport, specifically Liga MX, which is actually the most watched soccer league in the US. At the same time, the internet and social media erased borders. Gen Z didn't care if a sport was traditionally American. They wanted global connection. They could follow a star in Barcelona as easily as a quarterback in Dallas. And then came the ultimate catalyst, Lionel Messi. When the greatest player of all time joined Inter Miami, it wasn't just a sports transfer, it was a pop culture earthquake. Apple TV subscriptions skyrocketed. Ticket prices jumped by 1,000%. Celebrities literally lined up to watch him play. Messi didn't just bring fans, he brought the eyes of the entire world to American club soccer, proving the US was now a premier destination, not just a retirement league. Remember those empty NFL stadiums MLS used to play in? Gone. Over the last 2 decades, billions have been poured into soccer-specific stadiums. Teams like LAFC, Austin FC, and Atlanta United built incredible, intimate venues designed for acoustics and atmosphere by creating genuine match day experiences with supporter sections, tifos, and chants. Going to an MLS game finally felt like a real global soccer experience, not a compromised American version. Where attention goes, money follows. American billionaires realized European soccer clubs were undervalued compared to NFL franchises. Today, American investors own massive stakes in the Premier League, Serie A, and beyond. This influx of American capital into global soccer has created a massive bridge between the US and Europe. The sport is now fully integrated into the American corporate machine. Brands, broadcasters, and sponsors are all in, ensuring soccer remains front and center on our screens. We also finally fixed how we train players. Instead of relying purely on high schools and colleges, MLS teams built European-style free-to-play academies. We started exporting talent, seeing young Americans like Christian Pulisic or Weston McKennie play for the biggest clubs in the world gave U.S. fans a reason to tune in to the Champions League. We were no longer just consumers of the sport. We were producing top-tier talent for it, which brings us back to right now. The 2026 World Cup isn't the beginning of soccer in America, and it certainly isn't the end. It's the culmination of a 30-year project. We have the fans, we have the infrastructure, and we have the culture. Soccer didn't replace baseball or American football. It just carved out its own massive piece of the pie. The question is no longer, will soccer make it in America? The only question left is, how big can it get? Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe and stay curious.